We got my guy, Denard Span, former MLB player, coming through on Show and Go today. He's coming on today because he's a guy that obviously an amazing career, but I like the idea that he's used his platform to do so many bigger things outside of playing the game as well. So we'll dive into some of those. We'll dive into some of the trends that are going on in the game today, and then also dive into some of his actual gameplay footage and what he did well on the field. Show and Go starts now. It's good to have you here, man. I think one of the things that I wanted to bring you on here to talk about, because I've seen you transition outside of playing. We used to train together. Yeah. I understand you as a person, but also as an athlete a little bit too, and your motivations. But I wanted to talk to you about what we see in the game right now. I think the trends in the game are, some people like them, some people don't like them. Everybody has some specific feelings about them. I want to know first and foremost the new rule changes. What your thoughts are on some of the rule changes? Guys being able to, only be able to pick over 3 times, right? The bases being a little bit bigger. What are some of your thoughts on those, and have they benefited the game?
I definitely think it's benefited the game. My first thought is I wish I was still playing, to be honest with you. You're talking about, no shift. My last 5 years, you don't know how many times I hit into that shift. It definitely, took a hit on my batting average, but then as far as the base running aspect of the rule changes, pitchers not being able to pick over 3 times, like that, all of the rules that MLB changed would have benefited.
It's a part of your game.
Part of my game, and so you obviously see the game trying to go back to the old fashioned, bringing athletes and bringing more action, and just bringing more excitement to the ballpark. And so you're seeing more hits, without the shift. And then, you're talking about the shot clock, just the game being just more up to this generation where it's faster pace. So I do like how the game has trended with the new rules. I think that it will bring back more players, more athletes, more especially, African Americans as well, as far as being athletic. So I like what MLB has done.
And I think about kind of a guy like you too, who grew up playing multiple sports. Yeah. Like, we want to attract more of those athletes into the game of baseball. And I think seeing some of the changes that we've seen allows for that excitement to say, okay, baseball is sexy and it's not going to take 4 hours to play. Maybe as a young player, I can be a part of something like that and know that, okay, this is going to be something fun that keeps the attention of young players or even young adults watching the game or young kids watching the game. I think that's one of the things that resonates most with me is when I was younger, I felt like I used to watch a lot of baseball. And I feel like today, talking to a lot of the kids today, they don't watch as much baseball. And I think maybe because it's not as action-packed or you don't get the same speed of the game as some of the other sports that you see today.
Yeah, as you were talking, that's where my brain went to as far as, when you ask the majority of the kids in our community, why they don't play baseball, they say it's too slow. It's too much downtime. They find time to, allow their brains or their minds to wander off. And I do think that, the game of baseball is on the right track. Trying to hopefully, bring just a different demographic of fan, of players, just across the board.
I want to get your take on something that I wasn't actually thinking about before the show, but you've played against the Yankees, right? And now your days of watching outside of playing, to me, the Yankees almost like they had a culture of winning for a long period of time, and it almost seems like the expectations are extremely high for this team. But they're still searching for their own identity. I feel like they are still trying to live up to the expectations of the past, but are still trying to find their own culture within their team. And I guess I just wanted to kind of get your take on what you've seen with the Yankees as of recent. Because I feel like that's one of those markets we're always talking about, but do they deserve being talked about the way that, that we've been talking about?
I mean, I think, they're always going to be talked about just because of who they are and what they've done in the history of the game. So many great players have come through that organization. I don't know. You hit it right on point. I think they're still trying to find their identity.
Yeah.
And you've seen over the last couple years them kind of alter their team. You know, I think they went defensive focused. I think last year with Isaiah, kind of
for lefty, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Won't be playing shortstop.
Yeah, and so they've tried to do that, and then obviously they have the big boys with Judge and Stanton. So I don't, exactly understand fully what they're doing, but they obviously have the resources. That's why they'll always be afloat.
Right.
Even if they make bad decisions, they have the finances to put them back in a decent position and be competitive.
Yeah.
Like year in and year out. They can miss on a few, trades or, free agent signings and be able to recover, which a lot of other teams aren't able to do that.
I feel like that's what the Dodgers are able to do so well is they mix the ability to spend money, but then also be able to develop young players.
Yeah.
And I think that's, the best organizations are doing that.
Yeah.
You get the Atlanta Braves doing that right now. Even you can even look at the Texas Rangers who just won the World Series, spent a lot of money, but you see a lot of young, good players coming from their system too. Evan Carter, Josh Young, these players coming up. So I like the aspect of that's what the good teams focus on.
Cubs did it. They won the World Series.
They'll be looking to redo it.
Exactly.
Same thing. And we have a team here in the Rays that has to be really smart financially and develop young players. And I think that's something that they'll always continue to do as well.
Well, that's why you mentioned the Dodgers. Andrew Friedman.
Right.
He used to be the GM of the Tampa Bay Rays.
Right.
And that's why you see every offseason somebody's getting plucked away from the Rays front office because they realize, what the Rays do with minimal resources.
Right.
So putting that person with that type of mindset of how to, make something out of nothing with $10 in your pocket and you can, make it stretch and be competitive.
Right.
Just imagine if you have that same mindset and now you have $100 in your pocket.
Right. No,
you know
100%.
what I'm saying? So that's what you're saying with the Dodgers and, some of these other teams are trying to do that, but, you have to be committed to that,
What did you think about seeing a former manager of yours, Bruce Bochy, come back and all of a sudden win a World Series? Is it that it was that easy?
I loved it. I thought it was great for the game. I was so happy for him. Obviously I'm retired. I'm an old school guy, by heart.
I mean, you ain't that old.
I'm
saying you ain't that old school.
Yeah. But in today's game, I've been out of the game for 4 or 5 years, and it feels ancient. When I'm watching the game, like a lot has changed. The game has evolved. I think, for the better.
Right.
But, seeing, Bruce Bochy, who is an old school manager. We saw how he managed the playoffs, leaving his pitchers in there, starting pitchers in there, trusting those guys. Same thing with Dusty Baker. That's why I love that matchup. I thought it was good for the game of baseball.
Right.
And also, too, going back to the rules of the game, I think that's where the game is trying to, kind of come back to how it used to be in the old school way, if you will.
Right.
Like we're trending back into that. And into that direction, and I think once again it's just good for the game of baseball.
Well, I think there's something to be said for managers that have been there and done it, who have been in the game for a while, but also have a good feel for maybe not letting analytics take over their decision making, right? Like you see a lot of times, it's okay, maybe the numbers before the feel, and I think we're still having that argument nowadays. It's like, whether it be pitching, whether it be defensive replacements, whether it be platooning, like the importance of understanding the feel of your players, I think is extremely important.
Yeah,
I think
it's invaluable.
You mentioned some guys, you mentioned Bochy, Dusty Baker, those guys, they have a certain feel that maybe people may not agree with who are more statistical or analytical, but there's a reason why they won.
I agree. I mean, I think there's a place for analytics. I really do. Anytime you want to make any decision, you want to have facts,
as much information as
you possibly can.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a place for it, but for it to be the end all be all, I think there has to be a happy medium. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you have people that have, like you said, been there, done that.
Right.
They know what to look for. They know, what type of heartbeat a person has in big situations.
That's something
the
that
facts
you
and the
can't
numbers
quantify.
might not say this is a good matchup now, but I know this guy. I saw when he walked in the clubhouse today.
Right. Yeah.
He had a different look in his eye. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so once again, those are things that you cannot quantify.
Yeah, that's crazy. No, I wanted to get your take on a lot of those things from today because I feel like our game is going in the right direction, I feel like we're garnishing the attention of the right people. We're spreading our markets out. Yeah. Obviously, international is huge with baseball right now, playing in multiple different markets. We'll play in Seoul, Korea next year.
Yeah.
But I want to switch gears and ask you a little bit about your time now transitioning outside the game.
Yeah.
Because I know for me, it was almost like abrupt, right?
Yeah.
And it was almost like, okay, it's done now. Like, what's next?
Yeah.
And trying to figure out where is my path or where is my journey after the game. And I know it was tough for me because I think one of the tough things was seeing other players that I played against and knowing that I was probably still up to par with those players, but also at the same time trying to block that out and figure out, like, family-wise, okay, I got to move on at some point.
Yeah.
So I guess, how has the transition been for you after playing baseball? Because it's still been a short amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of happened abruptly, very similar to you. Like, I went from, playing to, and still feel like I could play at a high level.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden now, the game is, telling you otherwise.
Right.
And then you, like you said, you're looking around and you see other guys that you like, not saying I'm better than them, but I know I can compete still at a high level.
Yeah.
But what I've had to, come to grips with is that everybody's journey is different. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's all about timing. It's all about, where God wants you at that specific time. And so for me, the transition, I'm still going through the transition phase. I'm still trying to navigate, putting myself in, certain situations, uncomfortable situations, just trying to learn and grow.
Yeah.
But my focus primarily has been, my family. That's been number one for me. And, just like soaking up knowledge, I've kind of gotten into, just investing, you know what I mean? And, just surrounding myself with, smart individuals, people that are professionals in real estate. And, it's actually been a fun journey, to see, all of the hard work I put on the field, to be able to now, be a good steward, over my money and, leave a legacy for my family and, hopefully one day be able to teach my children. And, but, the most rewarding thing for me is I remember when I first retired having conversations with, these real estate people, and I'm like, I not being able to keep up, or them talking over my head. And now fast forward to this point, like I can, sit down and have a pretty high level conversation with these people. Wow.
I feel like that is one of the things that is almost tough as a hurdle to get over for a former player is you're going to go through phases where you almost don't know anything, right? Whatever that next endeavor is, you feel like you have to play catch up.
Yeah.
And for a while, you've been so focused on one thing that you've been great at that you haven't had to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that I would want athletes to know that it's okay to feel that way because it's still another level of competition, if you will. Like I still feel like learning and getting better at different things is almost a way of challenging yourself in a new area. And for me, that was kind of a similar thing kind of going into the media space. It's like not knowing anything, but at the same time, I like learning about this. I like trying to get better at these things. And I noticed that I was liking something that I wasn't used to doing.
Yeah.
Has that been something similar to you? Obviously the real estate thing, but have you found yourself like in any other areas like, okay, I could see myself maybe going there or figuring out something in that area?
Yeah, very similar. Our stories, I feel like, align.
Right.
We've been through similar things. We stopped playing around the same time as well. And, I've been a fan of you, watching your journey, watching how you, basically came into the media side of things. And me personally, I never thought that, that I would be in the media or I would be, holding the microphone. I just never, saw myself in that light.
Right.
It maybe crossed my mind for a split second when I played, but but for me, it was like I was so hyper focused. Mm-hmm. And so, just last year, you talk about, getting uncomfortable. I was approached about doing some TV with the
Right.
Rays, doing pre and post game, and initially I was like, I ain't, I don't. That's not me. I don't want to do that. But part of this transition that I'm in, like you said, is just about trying new things. For me, it was like I had the mindset of, let me at least cross it off the list.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to, be 5 years from now and not even attempting to
Right.
do it. So let me attempt it and see if I like it. And I got to be honest with you, when I first started last year, and I was like, this ain't for me. This ain't for me. I was, having anxiety, but towards the middle to the end of the season, I started to get more of a flow.
Yeah.
And I feel like I grew because I put myself in a
Right.
situation that was uncomfortable.
Yeah. And you talk about nervousness, anxiety, that's what I want people to know is normal when
That's
you do
good.
something
That means
different,
you-
right?
yeah,
that means you
you're being
you're
challenged.
in it and you're
Yeah.
really trying to figure out
Yeah.
how can I make myself better in a sense, in an area in which I may not have. You talk about being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You probably made yourself better in public speaking area
Yes,
that,
yeah.
could ultimately
Yeah.
go somewhere else. You may
Yeah.
need that somewhere else.
Exactly.
So, I guess I want to dive into something that I felt that maybe a lot of athletes are not as focused on, but I feel like is an important transition or an important phase when you are transitioning is kind of branding yourself or being able to use the digital space, being able to use social media. How have you found yourself, or what have you learned since leaving playing baseball, now in that branding and marketing yourself area?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely huge, definitely important. Your brand that's who you are. You're basically telling your story, you're selling yourself, and I just think that social media, it's a tool that we all have.
Right.
There's no excuses. Before, you used to could make an excuse and say, "Oh, I'm waiting for this person to give me an opportunity."
Right.
Social media is giving everybody an opportunity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but for me, because I am, in this transition phase for my personal life, I find myself, I have a foundation.
An amazing foundation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I forgot to say that as far as, one of my endeavors since transitioning, but I find myself, trying to build my brand more in that space because I know wholeheartedly, where I want to go in that space.
Right.
And so I find myself putting, more content out on my foundation page, more so than my personal page, believe it or not.
Right.
And like I said, a lot of it is because my personal life is still loading.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out, where Denard Span will be.
And what have been the ups and downs of trying to figure out what you have to put out there? Because I think that's one thing too,
Yeah.
as a former athlete, is first of all, we don't like to put a lot of stuff out there about
definitely.
ourselves, and we don't like to talk about ourselves a lot of times. There are some people that do, but a lot of times we don't like to do that. But I feel like that's something that you have to do when you're kind of putting your brand out there. So what have been some of the ups and downs of learning that part?
Ups and downs of learning, just
Of learning how to put yourself out there, of learning what to say, how to say it, how to communicate the right thoughts, being in front of the camera. What have you learned from that?
I just think you just have to be vulnerable and just be okay, with just putting it out, and just you got to start somewhere, I think all of us, if we look back 5 years ago, some of our old content and, us being in front of the camera and compared to where we are now, you would definitely see growth. And so I think that's part of it. And then two, it's you got to be confident in yourself and secure in yourself. And, I think a lot of us, we, think too much about what others may think of us and judge us by. So I just think you guys just have to be confident and secure in yourself and be willing to be vulnerable.
I think another thing too that's helped me is in the vulnerable space is asking people for help. I think that's something that you know, because when you're playing, you're so focused on like, okay, I got this myself. I know what I need to work on.
Yeah.
I have my routine.
Yeah.
These are the things I need to be focused on. But it's almost like outside of playing is like, maybe I need to learn from this person. And you spoke about a real estate too. Like, I think it's the same in trying to like build your own brand, whether it be a foundation or, you know, something that you're into. Yeah. Like asking people to help you along the way, whether that's creating that content, helping that website. You know, we have people filming right now that I'm asking help because you can't do it on your own,
Most
right?
Definitely. Having to have a team, and goes back to being vulnerable, right? Putting your pride aside, and which is tough for us. You know, when you've played at the highest level, you're used to, you know, feeling like you have everything all under control and you have all the answers, right? And then when you come into a new space, you know, it's like it's foreign. And so I think a lot of times people will shy away from things that are foreign and they're, you know, unfamiliar with.
Right.
But like you said, you know, as far as, you know, putting that aside and bringing people alongside of you that have more experience in that field to help you and collaborate.
Right, yeah. And for anybody who's looking at some of the things Denard has done, Denard Span Foundation has been an amazing thing that has motivated me too to want to figure out, okay, from a charity space, a foundational space, giving back space, what are the things that I need to be doing? Because you spoke about this earlier as being a good steward of your finances. And like, we don't do anything just to do it. It's to, and that's why I love bringing you on, is because a lot of your focus is to give back, right? And be able to help others. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're placed on this earth is whatever knowledge we learn or whatever we get is be able to give it back.
That's right.
So I just appreciate you speaking about that.
Most definitely.
I want to dive into some of the things that we saw you do on the field. And the reason why I want to dive into them is because we spoke about rule changes and we spoke about the game today, and some of the things that you did in your game, we may not be seeing as much of anymore, or maybe aren't as highlighted anymore. So I want to dive into some of those things that you had in your game. So let's go check it out. And I got a bat here for you too, just in case you need to demonstrate anything.
I'm about to lose the TV.
No, you're good. Are we straight? What up, J Mike?
Finally made it.
All right, let's see if we get this thing working now. All right, first I want to start with just from a stance standpoint. Like, for you, you've had some couple of different stances over the course of the year, over the course of your career. I feel like this was kind of the base, like the beginning, no? And
that's when I first broke into the big leagues.
Okay, that's what I thought. I feel like now I want to take us into a different stance that I saw you go into, and I want you to talk about it because I feel like a lot of times we'll see guys make changes in the game or make these changes over the course of their careers, but we don't really know why. And I think that's something important to talk about. So let me dive into this at bat here, where the broadcast is actually talking about your stance and what you've changed going and being a Giant now. You have the foot totally turned in. Now, where did you even get that from, and why did you decide to do that?
You know, for a couple reasons. Okay, so this is 2016. The year before this, I had 3 surgeries. 2 sports hernias, 1 in my hip. So first of all, I was dealing with a lot of things that were going on in my pelvic area. That's number 1. Number 2, I had a tendency of letting this front side fly open. Just too quick. My hands were always too quick, and I just, want to pull off the ball. So for me, at this, particular juncture in my career, I tried to overcompensate the feeling of turning that foot in, really to keep my front side, my front hip in, so that when I inevitably did open up, I was more square. If that makes sense. And so that's kind of how that evolved into me basically turning that foot
So
in.
when you first started turning that foot in,
it was kind of like a reminder for me to keep my front side in. And so that, anyway, I would start in and I would always kind of go like that. So if I started square, my front hip this is
way too much.
It would open up too much. So this kind of kept me more square to the middle of the field.
And when you first started doing it, video-wise, did you feel like, well, I guess two different things. We talk about like feel and what you're actually doing. Did you feel like you were able to stay closed off?
Yeah.
And video-wise, did you see yourself being able to stay closed better?
Yes, I felt it and I saw it.
Okay.
Yes, both.
I'll go ahead and play this here. And it's just, to me, it's just interesting because, like, I think that's another thing that we don't talk a lot about too is injuries or whatever it may be body-wise, we make changes to help us compensate in certain ways or even mentally to help us.
Correct. Yeah, my body, I mean, by this time, this is like year 8 for me. My body had, been through a lot of, injuries, mileage. And yeah, I don't even know how I did
wild.
that. That's why my hips are jacked up today. I can't even.
Like my ankle hurts
just watching it, right? And so, just my body changing and, just being a creature of habit, like doing whatever I had to do to compete. That's what makes us athletes is, we're problem solvers. Right. And we're going to do whatever we have to do in order to beat that pitcher on the mound. And that's what you see right there. I've never, I'm thinking about, I'm going back to even as a kid, like I never had a hitting coach. My mom would just take me to a batting cage, $5, figure it out yourself.
Wow.
So I always just had that knack of just doing just that. So,
just doing whatever
felt,
figure out how to
let me
get
figure
it
out
done.
how to put my body in a position to be successful.
Wow.
It might not look good. It's going to look unorthodox. I can't teach nobody else how I hit. Neither do I. Anybody should want to hit how I hit.
That was going to be my next question was, where did you learn to hit? Because I feel like everybody has almost, and maybe I'm wrong with this, but I feel like everybody almost has that one person that maybe had the most influence on them hitting. For me, I had, when I was in high school, had a guy by the name of Darren Johnson who was my hitting coach, who I would hit at his house. He had a cage in his house in San Diego. And we would hit, and that's where I really learned to even like load, like just be in a good position, learn how to use my legs. Like that's where I learned to really start hitting. Is there somebody that had the most influence on you hitting besides your mom?
Yeah, see, my mom was still my hitting coach. She would call me after every game and, what are you doing, son? But anyhow, it's funny you say, you learn how to load. Like I never learned how to do that. I was just going off of God-given ability and feel, you know what I'm saying? Like an anointment, if you will. And for me, like the two hitting coaches that come to mind is Joe Vavra, who I had in Minnesota. For all those years, and then Rick Shue, who I had with the Washington Nationals. Those are the two guys that I would say got me. Understood, my swing was unorthodox. They understood, just certain cues that I needed in order to, just get back get back to where I needed to be, basically.
Even mentally, like were those guys, like, I guess because there's two different ways that we can think about it. Like those guys helping you mechanically, right? But then approach-wise, I guess was that an influence as well, or is that something you really learned on your own? Because I feel like that was something that I had to learn along the way is like, okay, you can't cover the whole plate. And like, I felt like that may be more difficult to make adjustments in than being physical.
I'm thinking about Joe Vavra. Like a lot, I honestly, I felt like he understood my swing better than I did. And the reason why I say that is because I remember we'd be in the cage and he would be flipping to me. And, he would flip the ball like more firm on the outside corner. A lot of, for the reason why I used to do this right here is because he saw that my hands were so quick and I would pull out and pull off of the ball. And I didn't even realize that was what he was doing, but he saw that from his vantage point. You know what I'm saying? To make that adjustment.
Yeah, he was almost subconsciously helping you make that adjustment.
He was approaching me in the cage, flipping me in the cage because of things that he saw that I had trouble with. And he knew how to, put me in a better spot, better position to be successful. And I remember one day we were talking and he finally told me that, but it was like a year later. And I didn't even realize that was what he was doing. He was trying to get me to back the ball up. He was, flipping it firmer on the outside corner because I wanted to literally just go get the ball. He was like, no, that he did it to bring my contact point back.
And we see it over the course of the years, like you've always done a good job of being able to go the other way with it. I wanted to just, because even with obviously you were Washington, you had that same kind of hip inward movement.
I was healthy right here though. I was feeling good.
Well,
right
I was gonna say because this looks healthy, but for people like kind of what balanced. Results can come out of that. Like you can have whatever type of stance as long as you get into the right spot.
Correct. Flexibility, strength-wise, I was healthy here. This is a couple years before. This was 2014. You can even tell just my body. I just look more, just more fit. But yeah, a lot of it's confidence, man. Like if you're healthy, like you're in the box with, not with a chip on your shoulder, but just feeling good and mentally just saying to yourself, like, you know what, like I'm in a good spot. There's nothing that
nobody can beat me.
Nobody can beat me.
Yeah.
There's nothing that pitcher can do. And, that's a good feeling.
Young Bryce Harper.
Young Bryce Harper right there. No facial hair.
I want to see that one more time, actually, that swing. It's just like you just get ready and it's explode.
Yeah.
All right. Now, this is something that I wanted to bring up, too, because you talked about rule changes. And obviously, you probably have a lot more bags now in the game, too.
Yeah.
But what was your mentality like base running? Stealing bases. What was your thought process? What were you looking for from a pitcher? What were you trying to do physically to get yourself in a good position to go?
Well, I evolved as a base stealer. I didn't really learn how to steal a base until like 30 years old, 31.
Right.
Like I wish that I would have learned.
Just going off of speed, like just
No, I had a first base coach in Washington. I'm name dropping today, because I want to show them love. Tony Tarasco, he got my, not only, from a mechanical standpoint right, but he got me mentally right.
Wow.
To the point where I got on base, he was like, you a dog, go. Can't nobody see you. Right. You know what I'm saying? So he just instilled that confidence in me. And then he began feeding me information of what to look for, looking for, from head to toe. Like pitchers are creatures of habit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They do something. You just got to pay attention. If a guy is at least a 1-3, I'm taking off.
Right.
I don't even need to see nothing.
Yeah.
As soon as he lifts that leg up or I see him going home, I'm going. If he's faster than that, now I need to tell.
Yeah.
Most pitchers, or all pitchers, I should say, do something. Whether it's with their head, their front shoulder, to something that you can key on, so that you can turn that 1-2 into a 1-3-5.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, I learned a lot in Washington as far as my base stealing.
I'm gonna go ahead and play this one. Obviously, Syndergaard is a guy that early on in his career is a little slow.
Yeah.
You was even able to get a secondary and go.
Yeah. Well, a guy like him, like I honestly, I don't even remember his pickoff move, but I didn't fear that he could pick me off.
Right,
so that's why you see me jumping out there.
Right.
So that's why I was able to be aggressive on him.
Wow. We got another one here.
Yeah.
Now, another thing I wanted to talk about, too, is your ability to bunt the ball, right? Obviously, that was something that was a little bit a part of your game.
Yeah.
But I feel like we don't see that as much now, at least bunting for a hit, right?
Yeah.
You'll see the sack bunt every now and then, but guys that are confident to get a bunt down when they really need to.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and play this. What was the mentality, at least bunting-wise, even later on in your career, right?
Whenever I couldn't buy a hit or I wasn't seeing the ball well, that's what I resulted to. Us as baseball players, like, we're stubborn.
Right.
I used it, but I didn't use it nearly enough as I should have with my speed. And a lot of it was because I always felt like I could hit whoever was on the mound.
Wanted to swing it.
I wanted to swing it. I wanted to drive the ball. But just understanding, if they're going to give it to you and you have athleticism and speed,
right?
Like take advantage of it. It's slump proof, and it was a weapon that I always had in my back pocket.
And some of you maybe see the third base back, or most of the time did you go to third or you took it with you?
More the third. with righties, lefties, I would bring it with me.
Okay.
I used to like to kind of softly down the line. I was never good at like taking it to second base for whatever reason.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Huh. That's cool.
Kind of making the
That's
first
cool.
baseman come off and then the pitcher come off and then kind of have this
Right.
communication.
Little Sergio Romo getting ready.
See that right there? Like he has no shot. Like,
Yeah, there's no shot. He was playing too far
that's
back.
Rendon. Yeah.
My man he was all right after this.
Yeah, I was all right, man. I don't know. I ran to the first baseman.
But I wanted to show it because I think that there's still an art to that, right? Like there's
agree.
like I know we can be successful driving somebody in and using our outs to hit the baseball, but I think that to have the confidence to do it is something that can be a game changer. And it's something to the excitement of it too.
I agree. It just, like I said, just brings another element to the game. It can ignite a ball club.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And you can, do so many things from it. You draw the defense in. There's more of the field open for you to get a base hit. And, it's just so much that I believe, bunting does. Like it helps you even track the ball. Like I said, if you're not seeing the ball well,
that's a good point.
There's just so many just pros from it. I don't see too many negatives from having the ability to bunt.
I think that's something that, allowed you to have some longevity in your career too, being able to do a lot of different things. Even this is defense. Like this is something that I know you took a lot of pride in, and it's something that it really showed. Like I wanted to show this one too because it was like you was playing normal depth. This is right over second base, and you basically almost didn't need you didn't even have to full layout.
Yeah.
But it's something that I could tell you took pride in.
Every single day, this was what I knew I could bring to the ball club every single day. I knew I couldn't get a hit every day, but I could always save a run, save a hit, make a play, for my team and for my pitcher. And, I realized that at a young age, a young age in the game that, my athleticism and my speed was going to, be my bread and butter. And, every single day, I shagged like my life depended on it, pregame. And, man, this was, that me playing defense, that was, my favorite part of the game.
Pre-game that you were going.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've heard guys, I know I played with the guy, Tommy Pham, and it was almost like he was going way too hard during pre-game. But it was something that helped him.
Once the game started.
Once the game started. And he felt like he could get to every ball. And, and live reps was the most important thing. So that was something that you took very seriously before the game.
Oh, yeah. Every single day. Every single day I learned that. Just to be on point and stay sharp. Like in the big league level, like you have to be on point.
Yeah.
Every play is magnitude. Yeah. Or is magnified, I'm sorry. But, I felt like that was the time where I got the most game-like speed. I had an opportunity to work on, getting behind the ball, working through the ball, working on my footwork, working on my exchange. Because the last thing I wanted to do was, wait till 7 o'clock. Yeah. To find that out, and you don't want that happening and get embarrassed.
I think that's something that a lot of kids today, like young players, can learn from is like just the preparation part. Yeah. And it's it's not easy to go out there without really being prepared and knowing. And I think that's the thing that gives you the most confidence, right? Is okay, I've done all these things before the game even started. Yeah. And I think that's something a lot of young players could take away from.
Yeah, so. You want to check that box off, and you almost want to, like you said, Tommy Pham, as far as like tiring yourself out and wearing yourself out, and kind of training yourself from an intensity standpoint as close to the game start, as close to what the game speed is going to be like. Right. You know what I mean? So once the game starts, it's like I've been here before. I was just, just 2 hours ago, I was out there. Running around and taking live BP and doing those things.
Before we get out of here, I want to ask you something that maybe you can leave with people. And I know you've dealt with guys, whether it be young players, even players in the big leagues, whatever it may be. What's something that you try to leave with them that maybe you learned along your journey, along your path, that you feel like can be something tangible for them as they take into their own careers?
Well, first and foremost, I think you have to enjoy the ride. We can get wrapped up in, the ups and downs of playing this game, more downs than ups, as you know. But just first and foremost, enjoy the ride. But while you are enjoying that ride, make sure you put yourself in the best possible position you can to be successful.
Right.
That's what, and for me, what helped me like during the off season, just training my mind, training, obviously the body, but to me the mind was most important for me, and just developing routines and just sticking to it, man. Just discipline. It just comes down to discipline.
Right.
Obviously, who wants it the most, but who is going to be able to resist, staying in that box, staying in this box, not the batter's box, this box.
The outside factors.
Correct. There's going to be a lot of distractions, a lot of variables thrown at you, but can you compartmentalize those things and, stay in the zone that you need to be able to stay in?
Yeah. No, that's good, man. Denard Span, I appreciate you,
sir.
my brother. Thank you for coming through.
Always.